Well, with me now to take a closer look at these findings is Steven Slimovitch, the National Legal Counsel for B'nai Brith Canada. Mr. Slimovitch, good to see you. Thanks for coming to speak with me about this new report. For several years now, your organization has warned that anti-Semitic incidents are on the rise in this country. What stood out in 2018 compared to what you've been seeing in previous years?
Well, first of all, what has not stood out is the increase. The numbers have increased consistently over the course of the last 25 years.
So it's become a pattern now of going up every year.
It's there were 2 years over the course of the last 20 that went down minimally, but generally speaking, numbers go up. What is significantly different, or I guess you would say significantly different, is the fact that roughly 80% of all incidents have an internet connection. They're either done on the internet or they're somehow related to the internet. And that is a very serious problem.
Give me an example. What are you seeing?
Well, you could have your traditional ultra right-wing groups that meet virtually. There's no need to get a permit and meet in the local park or demonstrate on the street. You don't have to do that anymore. Now what you do is you meet virtually. People have no problem spewing hate virtually, and of course they have no problem receiving the hate virtually because it's all done anonymously.
So 80%, as you say, of these incidents are happening online.
They have a connection. They have a connection.
Okay.
That's right. That's right.
And so what kinds of?
Well, I'll give you an example. In the olden days, so to speak, you would have a swastika painted on the synagogue, on the side of a synagogue. And you would say, that's terrible, and 10 people would see it, and maybe they told 10 people, so 20 people would know about it. Now, it doesn't happen. Now, somebody takes a picture, and somebody who wants to disseminate it, he can get it off to hundreds of thousands of people, easily. So your one anti-Semitic incident has now affected hundreds of thousands of people.
To give us some context, what do you include when you're talking about monitoring incidents of anti-Semitism? What are we talking about?
Well, you're talking about physical acts, which are relatively rare in Canada, thank goodness. You're talking about vandalism, and you're talking harassment. harassment. They don't have to be criminal offenses. This is an audit of anti-Semitic acts, not an audit of anti-Semitic criminal offenses. So there are some which are, as I said, they are harassment. So for example, I don't know, an employer, here's one example, an employer who tells a potential employee he doesn't hire Jews. That would be an act, that would be an anti-Semitic act. It's not a crime, but it's an anti-Semitic act. The landlord who tells the potential tenant that he doesn't rent to Jews. Again, those are harassment type situations. Then, of course, you can have vandalism, which we all know what a vandalism incident is. And occasionally, you do have a physical criminal act.
Right. Where in Canada are the numbers increasing the most? Where are the areas where are the highest numbers of incidents?
Unfortunately, for years and years, Ontario, because it has usually has the highest proportion of Jews, had the highest numbers. But unfortunately, Quebec is the winner this year. Quebec has the highest number of incidents. The numbers in Quebec are 50% higher than they were last year.
Why do you think, do you have any ideas as to why that is? Have you had a chance to look into it, your organization looked into it, say, what is happening there?
We've noticed that whenever there is something in the public sphere that heats up, the Jews are inevitably going to become the scapegoat for it.
What do you mean? Something heats up? If there's some kind of
I'll give you an example.
Debate in the province over these religious symbols, over minority rights,
simple
immigration.
Example. You have a war breaks out in the Middle East. We could show you on a graph that the war breaks out in the Middle East, the number of anti-Semitic incidents increases. It's directly proportional. Now, we come back to Quebec. As people are arguing against Bill 21, as people are saying that, for example, the Jewish doctor shouldn't be allowed to wear his kippah on his head, Well, many people give themselves the liberty of going one step further. They give themselves the liberty of saying, the Jew shouldn't be wearing a kippah, or the Jew shouldn't be working, or the Jew shouldn't be in Canada.
Right.
And that's the problem.
Okay. Give me a sense of Canada in context here. What's the global context for this? When you look at Canada compared to other countries, where are we with this?
There's no question that we are a safer country. We are a more peace-loving country, if you will. Of course, there are various different reasons. Why have we had so few mass shootings? Because it's so much more difficult to get a gun. Does that mean that we are so much kinder to our minorities than they are in the States? I would have to say that we are more open, but there is a point. There is a point, and we do draw a line, and when our own personal situation is affected, that line is drawn.
You called again, let's look to where we go from here. You called again in this report, as you have in past reports, for a national strategy to deal with anti-Semitism. You still don't have it. You're calling for it again this year. What do you think the delay is? Why does it take so long to put in place the kinds of changes you think need to happen?
Well, I can tell you that some of the changes have been put in place. For example, we are calling for a dedicated hate crimes unit in every major city. Montreal now has...
Yeah, some cities now have that.
Exactly. Well, some cities had it for years and years. But Montreal got one 2 or 3 years ago. So at least we can say we have advanced in that perspective. But where we haven't advanced, and it's not exclusively Canada's hesitation, it's a world phenomena, is the internet. We are going to have to face the reality that the internet is a wonderful place to spew hate. It's a wonderful place to gather hate mongers, and it's a wonderful place to ferment hate. So, and we have to deal with it.
And how should the government deal with it?
Well, it's not going to be a simple thing. You have to bring in internet service providers. You have to bring in the communications people. You have to bring in the justice people. The difficulty that we have right now is we are saying, well, this is just very complicated. We can't touch this. And that we simply cannot do. Because right now, for example, if it's reported to us that there's an anti-Semitic, what's an example? On eBay, for example, a few months ago, there was a swastika for sale in someone's auction. Well, we have to send a letter to eBay. eBay has to analyze the photo. It takes a long time before anything happens. Some providers will remove the item, but some won't.
Right. And so the role of the federal government in that is some kind of regulation, some kind of rules you think you want from the federal government to say? We're
going to have to adapt to the 21st century. The internet is here. And in the same way as we're starting to adapt our criminal code to the 21st century, we have to adapt our hate laws to the 21st century.
All right. Steven Slimovitch, Brith Canada, thanks for your time today. Appreciate it.
Thank you.